Hey everyone, it's Monica. Welcome back to Homeschool Voices. Today I'm going to talk about your chances of getting into a charter school in the 2021-2022 school year. So I recently had a question posed to me about AB77 and sb98. These two bills together are going to make it basically very difficult for you to get into a charter school next year. So that would be in the 2021-2022 school year. In fact, they make it really difficult right now. What these bills did was they capped funding at 2019 and 2020 levels. So if a school had 600 students, then this year in 2021, even if they have 300 students now, they're still getting funding for 600 students. So this thing about attendance mattering for funding, for now, it doesn't matter anymore. So those bills are only supposed to last for a year, but I'll get into that later. But right now, those schools are getting the same funding for the enrollments that they had in 2019, 2020. That sounds great, right? Because we don't want to hurt public schools, and I think that was the intention. But side effect, whether this was intentional or not, was that people don't want to be in the public schools. They don't like the distance learning. A lot of people, not everybody, and so they're going to pull their kids out, right? So legislators knew this. That's why they made this law, to protect the public schools. But that's kind of messed up when you think about it, because people were trying to vote with their dollars. Their children sort of represent dollars by pulling their kids out of a system that's not working. That system should not be funded if people don't approve of it and it's not working. But that's besides the point. If they pull their kids out and try to go to the ever popular homeschool charter option, they try to go into a charter that does a homeschool charter option, then that charter will probably not be able to accept them, because again, that charter's funding was capped at the 2019-2020 levels. So if that charter had 300 students and now they have 1,000 people that want to join the charter, they can't accept them because they only have funding for those 300 students. And remember, charters give out money for educational funds, for classes and materials and things like that. So they just cannot spread themselves too thin. It's not a possibility. AB77 and sb98 basically make it very hard for charters to accept new students. And that's not going to change. I mean, I think if you got on the wait list way in the beginning, you might have a chance. But if you didn't, I'm sorry to say, I don't think that you're going to get in. So another interesting thing that I've heard from a lot of people is they're really confused about homeschooling in California. So I'm going to link to another video at the end of this video that goes through the details of homeschooling legally in California. But the really important point that I want to make is that you do not need to be a part of a charter school to homeschool in California. You can homeschool independently. You file a private school affidavit, or a PSA. Basically, that means that you are starting your very own private school. That's how it works in California. And you homeschool. You don't get money from the state if you do that, because you're your own private school, and private schools don't get money from the state. Actually, when you're in a charter school, you're technically part of the public school system, just in case that wasn't clear. So when you file a PSA, you're doing it all on your own. And that may sound really intimidating, but if you watch some of my other videos, I'm a big advocate of doing things pretty differently from the public school system. And if you do that, it doesn't necessarily require a lot of money. I did a PSA all the way through 6th grade with my son. And I said, hey, everyone's talking about all the money you can get. Might as well try this charter school thing. So I have to say it's been a mixed bag. I've definitely been able to utilize the funds and to buy things that I probably wouldn't have bought before. And you can look at that in a couple different ways. You can say, well, maybe, because it's not like I couldn't have bought those things. I could have, but I didn't want to spend the money on them, probably because I didn't value them enough, which is sort of funny. But in any case, I bought curriculums. I have bought overpriced games that I wouldn't normally have bought, but I do like a lot. One game would be Election Night. What a good game. Such a good game. But, you know, I've only played it a few times. So it's like, is that something I needed? I found the curriculums I have bought from Moving Beyond the Page. I probably bought, they go in units. So it's sort of like unit studies that last for a month or two, depending on how long you take to go through the booklets. And I probably bought 15 of them, and we may only use 5, because I just find that curriculums are often just very watered down and not as good as they seem on the surface. So there's other ways. If you watch some of my other videos, you're going to see there's other ways of doing it. There's free options. You can do easy peasy if you don't mind online. It's not my top choice, but if you really feel like you need structure and guidance, at least in the beginning, do easy peasy. It's free. You could do Time for Learning. It's very cheap. I think it's $20 a month. It might be $25, but that's pretty affordable. And you could just figure it out. You don't need, in fact, I really have a hard time spending all the money that I have available to me. I used to really use the public library a lot, and I haven't used them as much. And it is nice, especially during COVID. I can request books from the library, but it is nice to be able to have the books in my house and ready, and not have to make runs to the library constantly back and forth. But if I didn't have access to these funds, I would definitely be using the library, and it's not that hard. And I had a lot of books to read for the kids all the time, very educational, very enriching, and that's largely what what their education consists of. So just briefly to recap, yes, those laws are going to make it next to impossible for anyone to get enrolled in a homeschool charter option. You could probably do a charter option where you do distance learning if you want to do that, but if you want the homeschool charter option where you get all the money, that's probably not going to happen, and I'm not optimistic that it's going to change. Even those laws were supposed to expire in a year, but with all of the people who want to stay away from public schools because they don't like the masks, they don't like the social distancing, they don't like the plastic everywhere, schools are going to push back against that. The teachers' unions are going to push back, and they're going to do a lot of backroom deals and make sure that there is legislation that makes it less appealing to homeschool. But know that you do not need that money, and in some ways it is a little bit of a curse. It's difficult. They won't approve certain books. For me recently, especially as your kids get older and you start getting into more substantial material, they won't approve stuff if it's against their ideology, and it's next to impossible to fight it. So that can be difficult. And also, if your kid is advanced, they don't like to approve stuff that's advanced. If your kid is slow, they're going to push you to get your kids up to grade level and basically stress you out and stress your kid out. So if you want to do things exactly like a public school does, and your kid is the perfect picture of the average kid, I don't know how many kids are, but if your kid is, then this might be great for you. But if your kid is advanced, or your kid is slow, or you have ideas in your head that don't match up with the typical public school teacher mentality, then don't feel bad if you can't get into the charter, because it's a little bit of a headache sometimes, and you don't really need those funds. It's actually hard to spend those funds, in my opinion. So I hope that helps, guys. If you like this video, please click thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, please click subscribe and the notification bell next to it. In the meantime, happy homeschooling and have a great day.